He walked in to buy 10 trucks for his company. But before he could finish his sentence, they told him to leave, no questions. No handshake, just a cold, dismissive stare. What they didn't know, he wasn't just another black man in a suit. He was a millionaire CEO with a plan. And 10 minutes later, he didn't just buy the trucks. He bought the whole damn dealership. This isn't about revenge. This is about power, about dignity. And what happens when silent strength flips the kuvla? Script. Stay with me, because this is justice done right. In the quiet morning light, Malik Thompson steps onto the polished concrete floor of DeLancey Motors. He's a man of quiet confidence, his suit tailored, his stride measured, but his presence draws a subtle tension. This isn't just another trip to buy a car. For Malik, a black business owner who built his construction empire from the ground up, every look matters. That tension blooms in the offices around him as Rick DeLancey, the dealership's manager, glances up. His eyes flicker with a question he won't voice. What is this man doing here? Angela Ruiz, a sales associate, stands nearby with papers in her hand. She notices how the atmosphere shifts, how the chatter dims. Rumor has it Malik's in the market for a fleet of company vehicles. More than 10 cars. A sound business decision. But here, the sale isn't just about numbers. Within moments, Rick approaches. His tone is clipped. Sir, you'll have to leave. We don't serve people like you. It's not coded language. It's raw, unfiltered. In that moment, time slows. Malik looks Rick in the eyes. No anger, just calm, just presence. He nods wordless and steps outside. In the silence that follows, Angela searches for an explanation. Was it his suit? His skin? Or something deeper? BIA's tracing back decades. A suspicion of success when coupled with black skin. And that mixed success plus blackness, that's what makes this moment live. A battle not of fists, but of dignity. Malik waits in his car. He doesn't call the police. He doesn't roar. Instead, he simply breathes. The camera captures him glancing out the window, face calm, mind racing. Because he knows what he can do. He has resources. He has leverage. But more than that, he has resolve. In 10 minutes, the arc of power will shift. This isn't revenge. It's reclamation. The stakes, public perception, trust in institutions, racial justice in everyday America. And above all, Malik's dignity. If you think this is the story of one man buying cars, think again. It's the story of how bias cracks in daylight. How privilege built on skin collapses when confronted by principle. The question isn't, what car will he drive away? It's, what precedent will he set? Stay with me, because what happens next turns a simple slight into a national reckoning. Malik stepped through the glass doors with the calm of someone who had already calculated the cost of being underestimated. DeLancey Motors was spotless chrome. Finishes, bright lighting, and a lobby where each corner whispered affluence. It was clear this dealership didn't see many walk-ins like him. But Malik wasn't there to be seen. He was there to buy. His company had just secured a 7-figure city contract, and he needed trucks. Reliable ones. 10 at least. Cash ready. He didn't need fanfare. But what he got was friction. Rick DeLancey spotted him within seconds. Rick wasn't new to reading a room. He prided himself on it. But what he saw in Malik, he didn't understand. He didn't see a CEO. He saw someone out of place. He didn't register the expensive watch or the branded folder Malik carried. What registered was the skin, the presence, the assumption. So Rick acted. He didn't offer a handshake, no welcome. Just a tilt of the chin and a curt tone. You lost? That was the first thing he said. Malik smiled, not amused, but used. To this, looking for fleet pricing. 10 Ford F-150S, preferably 2024 models, white, with toolboxes and GPS. His voice was even, no sharpness. No apology. Angela Ruiz stood 10 feet away, watching the exchange. She had seen this before. Not here maybe, but in other places. She shifted, as if to step forward, but Rick raised a hand without looking. He wasn't done. "We're fully booked for today," Rick said, eyes narrowing. "You can try another dealership. Maybe on the south side." Angela's face turned. She knew what that meant. South side was code. It always had been. Malik, still holding his folder, glanced around. 3 other customers were browsing, none of whom had been approached with suspicion. One man in cargo shorts was literally sipping a soda over a Camaro. "No problem," Malik said quietly. He made eye contact long enough for Rick to feel it. "You just made a very expensive mistake." He turned and walked out, slow and composed. Angela bit her lip. The silence that followed wasn't thick. It was hollow. Rick shrugged, as if brushing off a fly. "Had to be done," he muttered. But outside, Malik wasn't shaken. He sat in his black Escalade, phone already dialing. "Carl," he said when the voice answered. "Yeah, it's time. Make the offer on that lot. Now." Carl Jefferson, his lawyer, didn't ask why. He already knew. Malik had been watching DeLancey Motors for weeks. The business was struggling. It was in quiet talks to sell, quietly bleeding cash. Malik's team had done the math. What he didn't expect was that today, this moment, would be the tipping point. Angela watched him through the glass. Watched him leave without raising his voice. No scene, just a controlled exit. And that, she realized, was power, not the loud kind. The permanent kind. Rick paced his office, barely aware of the chessboard he'd just walked into. He hadn't just insulted a customer. He had insulted the future owner. 10 minutes. That's how long it took to turn a dismissal into a decision. And for the man everyone dismissed to change the rules entirely. It didn't take long. Carl Jefferson, always direct, always prepared, had the documents ready within minutes. The dealership, as Malik already knew, was leveraged heavily. The owners were looking for a silent exit, quick, clean, and without scandal. Malik wasn't interested in silence. But he was interested in ownership. The call was quick. Carl presented an offer just above market, cash ready. There were no contingencies, no negotiations. The owners accepted before lunch. Malik didn't wait for the ink to dry before turning the wheel of his Escalade. He returned to the lot not because he had something to prove, but because he wanted to be seen. He parked right where he had before, same spot, same steps, same doors. But this time, when he walked in, he wasn't looking for keys. He owned the building they jingled in. Rick was leaning over a desk, arguing with a parts supplier. Angela was sorting forms. The room was alive with the shallow bustle of sales talk. No one noticed Malik at first. Not until he crossed the threshold with purpose. This time, his silence was different. It didn't ask for respect. It required it. Angela looked up first. Her eyes widened, lips parted. Rick turned, annoyed. The irritation froze on his face as Malik stepped forward and held up a single sheet of paper. A deed, a purchase agreement, stamped, signed, final. "What's this?" Rick asked, but he already knew. "I own this place now," Malik said plainly. "No dramatics, just truth. DeLancey Motors is under new management." For a moment, Rick's face held disbelief, then confusion, then something close to fear. Malik didn't gloat, didn't smile. He just stood there steady, unwavering, the embodiment of everything Rick had refused to see. Angela dropped her clipboard. She took a step forward, then stopped. She didn't know whether to clap or cry. "You remember me?" Malik asked, eyes locked on Rick's. 10 minutes ago, you made a call about who belongs here, and you were wrong." Rick opened his mouth to speak, but there was no script for this. No corporate training covered the moment you dismiss a man who turns out to be your boss. I'm not here to humiliate you, Malik continued. But I do want you to understand something. You didn't just disrespect me. You disrespected the idea that someone like me could be here in the first place. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Every syllable landed like a verdict. Angela stepped forward. Mr. Thompson. She began, but he held up a hand. You're good, he said gently. I saw the way you hesitated. That matters. Rick stood frozen. The keys on his desk, the contracts, the phone, even the framed photo of his father shaking hands with a Ford rep suddenly looked like relics. I've got plans for this place, Malik said. Starting with a culture where no one gets turned away because they don't fit someone's idea of success. Then, without another word, Malik turned and walked the floor. He didn't need to linger. His presence was the message. The story had already begun writing itself. And this chapter, the one Rick never expected, was just getting started. The story spread faster than Malik anticipated. By the end of the day, someone had tweeted a photo of him standing inside the dealership, deed in hand with the caption, "He got kicked out. Then he bought the whole damn place." The internet ran with it. Memes, reels, duets, his face, calm and composed, was everywhere. But Malik didn't care about going viral. What he cared about was what came next. Behind the scenes, former employees began reaching out. Not to congratulate him, but to share what they had held in silence for years. One of them was Darnell Grant, a former salesperson at DeLancey Motors who had quit 2 years prior. Darnell had been the top earner for 3 months straight before Rick quietly reduced his commissions, saying he was too aggressive with customers. Darnell, who also happened to be black, knew better. They didn't want someone like me being the face of their numbers, he said. They wanted me invisible. Malik listened to every voice. He wasn't collecting stories for sympathy, he was mapping a pattern. Because this wasn't just about Rick. It wasn't even about DeLancey Motors. It was about how racism could shape daily decisions in subtle, deniable ways. How it could live in assumptions, hiring practices, and who got approached on a sales floor. Emails from the community poured in. One woman, a single mother named Teresa, had once tried to trade in her van at DeLancey. Rick had laughed when he saw the mileage. "This isn't a junkyard," he'd said. She left in tears. Now, seeing Malik take over, she wrote, "It's not just a win for you. It feels like a win for all of us who were told we weren't worth the time." Malik wasn't naive. He knew systems didn't change just because ownership did. But he also knew that power, used right, could shift culture. The first thing he did was commission a full audit of hiring records, promotions, and customer complaints. Over the last 5 years, patterns emerged: painful, consistent, undeniable. He shared those findings in a town hall meeting held in the dealership showroom, now cleared of cars and filled with folding chairs. Staff were invited, so were community leaders. And so was Rick. Rick showed up late, sitting in the back. He didn't speak. Malik did. "We all know what happened here," he began. "And I'm not just talking about me. I'm talking about every customer who got ignored. Every qualified applicant who got passed over. Every employee who didn't feel safe speaking up." He didn't yell. He didn't accuse. He just named it. In front of everyone. The old culture, he said, didn't fail because of bad sales. It failed because it chose who was worthy of respect and who wasn't. A silence followed. The kind that fills a room when truth finally finds oxygen. Angela was there too. She raised her hand. "What happens now?" she asked. Malik answered without hesitation. "Now we rebuild. Not just inventory, not just reputation. We rebuild trust." The dealership was no longer just a place that sold cars. It had become a mirror, and under Malik's leadership, it wasn't just reflecting change. It was enforcing it. Change didn't begin with a press release. It began on Monday morning, in a back room with folding chairs, lukewarm coffee, and silence. Malik stood at the front, flanked by a diversity trainer and a whiteboard. No suits, no slogans. Just a real question. What does respect look like when no one is watching? The first weeks were tense. Employees walked on edge, unsure if Malik's presence meant surveillance or transformation. But he made it clear this wasn't a purge. It was a rebuild. No one would be fired for what they didn't know. But no one would stay blind by choice. The training was mandatory. Not a slideshow, not a 1-hour HR box to check, but 6 weeks of sessions where everyone had to speak, reflect, and own up. And when Angela Ruiz spoke up, people listened. "I didn't stop Rick," she said one morning. "I knew it was wrong, but I froze. I told myself it wasn't my place. But I was wrong. Silence is a choice." That moment broke the dam. Others followed small admissions, uncomfortable truths. One of the senior sales reps admitted he used to rate customers based on how they dressed. Another said he was trained to avoid the wrong neighborhoods when doing test drives. These weren't just habits. They were inherited biases. And under Malik's leadership, they had an expiration date. He launched a hiring initiative focused on inclusion, partnering with trade schools, local HBCUs, and reentry programs to recruit people who had been locked out of opportunities for years. Darnell Grant was invited back, not just as a salesperson, but as director of outreach, leading the new talent pipeline. But perhaps the most powerful change was cosmetic. The dealership's name came down, the chrome letters of DeLancey. Motors were unbolted, one by one, and replaced with matte black signage, Thompson Auto Group. Beneath it, a new slogan stretched across the glass. "Every road starts with respect." The rebranding wasn't just about aesthetics. It was a public declaration that this place no longer tolerated the invisible hierarchies that decided who mattered. That dignity wasn't negotiable. And that justice could live inside a showroom, not just a courtroom. Community response was swift. Customers who had once driven past now pulled in. People asked for Angela by name. Others asked how to get their kids into the Thompson training program. Sales climbed. But more than that, morale did. Malik didn't stop at the dealership. He launched a foundation, the 10-Minute Fund, named after the time it took to flip rejection into ownership. The fund offered grants to young entrepreneurs of color who had the vision but not the capital. Its first recipient? A 22-year-old woman starting a mobile auto detailing business. Someone Rick would have likely ignored on sight. At the first community celebration, Malik took the stage in the lot under string lights. Music played, kids danced between cars. He held the mic like he held every room, calm, grounded. "I didn't buy this place to prove anything," he said. "I bought it so no one else has to prove they belong." He looked out, not at rows of vehicles, but rows of people. Employees, neighbors, former skeptics. All watching. "This isn't a success story," he added. "It's a responsibility story." And with that, accountability became more than a word. It became policy, practice, legacy. Rick came back one last time. Not to reclaim anything. There was nothing left to claim, but to look. He stood outside the showroom on a quiet morning, hands in his pockets, eyes scanning the new sign. Thompson Auto Group. The lettering was matte, understated, confident. He barely recognized the place. New logo, new people, different energy. But the biggest difference was what wasn't visible anymore, his authority. Malik saw him from inside. He didn't flinch. He walked out to meet him, no security, no entourage. Just two men. One who had dismissed and one who had endured. Rick cleared his throat. I heard about everything you're doing here. It's impressive." Malik didn't respond right away. He just studied him, not with hostility, but clarity. "The kind that makes a man see himself without mirrors." Rick looked down. "I wanted to say I was wrong. About you. About a lot. Malik nodded. You were. A pause. Long enough to sting. Rick's shoulders slumped, but he stayed. I've been thinking, Rick continued, about all the people I treated like that. How easy it was to do. How normal it felt. That scares me more than getting fired ever did. Malik let that settle. He could have let the silence stretch into punishment. But he didn't. Truth is, Malik said, what you did what so many others do without blinking. It's not rare. It's just rarely corrected. Rick nodded slowly. I was part of a system that didn't question itself. And I never thought someone like you would have the power to flip the script. Malik stepped closer, not in menace. In understanding. I didn't want revenge, he said. I wanted clarity. I wanted you and people like you to feel, for once, what it's like to be doubted before you speak, shut out before you start. That discomfort, it's where real change begins. Rick didn't argue. There was nothing left to protect. Malik offered something unexpected. Not forgiveness, not friendship. Just space. If you're serious about understanding this, he said, join one of our community sessions. Listen, not to defend but to learn. Rick nodded. That was enough. Malik turned and walked back inside, the door closing behind him like the final page of a long, painful chapter. Inside, life moved forward. Angela coached a new hire through his first sale. Darnell spoke with a young intern about building credit. Teresa, the single mother Rick once mocked, was now a customer service lead. The dealership hummed not just with engines, but with dignity. Malik sat at his desk overlooking the lot. He thought of every door that had been closed on him, every sideways glance, every "Are you sure this is for you?" that had shaped his path. And then he looked out at what he had built, not in spite of those moments, but through them. Justice, he realized, isn't just what happens in courtrooms. Sometimes it's what happens when the person you doubted ends up signing your check. When the silence you relied on becomes a voice that won't bend. When the place that once locked you out opens its doors wide and refuses to close them again. To the world, it looked like a man bought a dealership. But to everyone watching closely, Malik Thompson did something far more radical. He rewrote the rules.